Okay, let's open with the caveats. 1. I'd never actually seen Knots Landing past the pilot episode prior to starting this. I only stuck with Dallas and a little bit of Dynasty, so this is going to be kind of a different series for me. Number 2, due to low home video sales and onerous music rights issues, only the first 2 seasons were ever released on DVD, so this will likely be a short-lived run on this channel, unless Discovery decides they need the content for HBO+. Number 3, given number 1 and number 2, outside of this episode, which just follows up on return engagements, Knots Landing is going to be a Patreon-exclusive bonus. I need the content, and this has side hustle written all over it. With that in mind, if you're watching this, you should already know the deets of the show, but if you stumbled upon this video, it goes like this. Knots Landing is a spin-off of the massive 1980s cultural touchstone Dallas, and while it never really hit the zeitgeist at Who Shot JR levels, it did last longer and maintain quality in its own low-key way for several seasons. The show centers on Gary and Val Ewing, outcasts from the Dallas Ewing family who are just trying to put their lives together. Gary is an alcoholic whose father was an old-school taskmaster, and his older brother is a low-grade narcissist with a penchant for ruining people's lives.
Well, how's my favorite sister-in-law?
Despite being the black sheep of the family, Gary formed a very strong bond with his mother Ellie, and she purchased a house in the cookie-cutter development project known as Knots Landing as a wedding gift to help Gary get a leg up. And that's where we are now. The first thing you'll notice is that the theme song, composed by Dallas composer Gerald Emmel, sounds familiar but somehow soapier. That perfectly encapsulates the show, so talk about nailing it on the first try. We open with Sid Fairgate and Laura Avery arriving home to the cul-de-sac at the same time. Sid is home early because of a bad cold, and it's a really inconvenient time to return, as he discovers his 18-year-old daughter Annie, played by 28-year-old Karen Allen, having sex in his bed.
Hi, Daddy. You're home early.
Sid's wife Karen pops in to welcome the newlywed Ewings to the neighborhood and meets brother Bobby. She barely has time to invite them to dinner before Sid tosses Annie's teenage boy toy out on the lawn. Sid and Karen argue about Annie's behavior, and we learn that Sid and Annie have only recently been reunited. Annie's been acting out, and Karen is sick of it, but Sid has a guilt complex about being an absentee father, and he refuses to discipline Annie. Gary and Val tell Bobby that they want to keep their remarriage from Lucy just in case they flame out again. They understandably don't want to put her through that. Gary leaves to drive Bobby to the airport, and that's when Val meets lawyer Richard Avery, Laura's husband. He pops in to take a look at the Ewings' home and offers to get a light bulb so Val can have some light in the place. A bit of a red flag, Rich tells Val he needs to get home before his wife thinks badly of Val.
Before we even give her good reason.
Val falls asleep on the couch waiting for the bulb, which gives Gary time to show up and meet Richard. Rich immediately gives Gary the third degree about Ewing business interests before inviting them over for drinks. He also warns them about Karen Fairgate's propensity to butt in.
She's like that little girl in the comics, you know, psychiatric help 5 cents. Only Karen doesn't even want the nickel.
Speaking of the Fairgates, Karen is upset that Sid won't deal with Annie, especially since Annie is a bad influence on the younger kids. Dinner gets awkward as Annie becomes a topic of conversation, and Sid and Karen's argument threatens to leak out.
Don't say shut up to each other. Except under certain circumstances. Like this one.
Would you mind not talking about this now?
Damn, this is some waspy shit. We made our final regular couple in Kenny and Ginger, the younger, sexier, swingier couple on the block. Annie seeks to crash at their place thinking Ginger would be at work, and we get the implication that she and Kenny have hooked up recently behind Ginger's back. At post-dinner drinks, all of the couples at the cul-de-sac come together, with the exception of Kenny, who stays behind to calm Annie down. Of course, the Ewings get the grilling as the new and interesting residents. Everyone wants to know about Gary's business prospects and why Lucy didn't come with them. Ginger seems blissfully ignorant of Annie's intentions, but Karen immediately zeroes in on her stepdaughter's plans and excuses herself. Karen kicks Annie out of Kenny's house and gives him a warning. Stop being Annie's shoulder to nibble on or face the wrath of Sid Fairgate. It is at this point that viewers of Dallas's first season should see some striking parallels to the plot points of this pilot. More on that in a bit. Annie escalates things by popping in on the party and inviting everyone to get naked on the beach, embarrassing Sid and Karen.
And then coming out drenched and dripping and peeling off my clothes and rolling around in the sand until I'm covered like a breaded veal chop.
Sounds good to me.
Valine sees a lot of Lucy in Annie, though, and tries to bond with her. Annie pieces out, though, and hits on all the men on her way out. After the party is over, Annie and her 15-year-old sister Diana drive home drunk and cause a scene on the lawn. Karen lays down the law and tells Sid he's going to have to choose between his delinquent daughter or the rest of the family. And that's how Karen talks to the manager. All this excitement makes Val Ewing hesitant to live here. Gary notes that Val Ewing was watching him like a hawk to make sure he wasn't drinking with Sid and Richard, and he tells her that they need to give each other, and Knots Landing, a chance. At the Fairgates, Karen catches Annie getting ready to run out on them and confronts her. The sight of Annie's own reflection causes her to go feral and destroy things before escaping into the night. Well, that's a little extreme just for daddy abandonment issues. There's clearly some other traumatic stuff going on there. Sid is so angry that he tells Karen she can leave at any time. Annie gets arrested for solicitation and somehow calls Val Ewing's number. No idea how she got that listing so fast. Val bails Annie out and agrees to take her to the beach. In a show of trust, Val leaves Annie with the keys to the car while she goes into the ocean, and this surprising act of faith is enough to get Annie to open up. Somewhat. Annie's mother has some mental problems, and so they bounced around a lot as Annie's mother kept her from seeing her father. It seems unfair to hate her mother, so all of Annie's anger is directed at her father, who is at least mentally well.
How come you hate your daddy so much? Grandma's dead. I got no one else to hate.
Yeah, okay, that works. Back home, Annie mouths off again and gets slapped by Sid. She slaps back, though, and that release of anger seems to be enough to break the ice between them. Sid follows her upstairs and offers to be the father that she always needed. It's a really good speech, and even though Annie doesn't respond, she is able to look at herself in the mirror again. And more than that, Sid and Karen smooth things over between them and hop in the backseat of the car for some make-up sex. And we're out! A lot of the pilot episode is remixed ideas from the Dallas miniseries. We have an awkward newlywed couple who is unsure about their living situation, especially the wife. We have a willful and unruly teenage daughter who needs to be tamed by a show of love. And we have a big ensemble waiting on deck to get more depth. Safe to say this one hit the ground running and crushed it in the first episode. The interesting choice was having Val and Gary mostly recede into being background players in favor of introducing us to the Fairgates and their problems. And it worked! Of course, Val and Gary get their moments too, but this is the Sid and Karen show for the opening episode. I said it frequently in Dallas episode reviews that the writers are experts at theme, and this one pulls Gary and Val's themes right into the new show with ease. Gary's alcoholism and self-esteem issues play a role.
I don't even know if I can sell cars.
Val's reluctance to accept that she could be happy at all rears its ugly head. Oh, and Annie makes a fine substitute Lucy for Val to deal with. Annie is, of course, played by the great Karen Allen, who you will never see again on Knots Landing after this. And understandably so, as she had already booked a little movie called Raiders of the Lost Ark at this point, and she was about to blow up as a Hollywood leading lady. In fact, Annie is barely mentioned again after this episode. But don't worry, there's plenty of family drama ahead.
'Cause I've been living life right like I could just die.